Akhetaten's Gates, Chapter 11. It was a hot day. I ended up sitting in the shade, my hand in the water. The warmth actually made my cramps subside, easing the suffering of my first menstruation, and my hand in the water was helping with the cooling. I could have dozed at this point, but a cold splash of water felt like an electric jolt up and over my body as I screamed. That was cold! Amenhotep! That's cold! I know, he replied simply. That's why I'm up here. I went and got all cold. Now I'm going to get warm. Are you a damn lizard or something? I spat. He cocked his head to the side, seeing me recline again with a frustrated sigh. Aren't you going to swim with me? Are you all right? Are you sure you're not mad at me? I said I was sorry. You believe me, don't you? After the lesson, I had to talk to the other boys too. They'll be becoming my ministers one day. I wanted to try and get to know them. Tepi suggested it would improve my relations with them and the other countries. Calm down, I sighed. I told you I wasn't mad. I'm just uncomfortable. He scooted closer. Is it true then? You're a woman now. How do you know that? I asked. My father made advances on you. That can only mean that you have become a woman. I guess. It's wonderful, he smiled. Why does everybody keep saying stuff like that? Well, when you become a woman, you can get married and have babies, he explained, as though he was surprised I wouldn't know something that obvious. Married? Me? Why? I just said, Nefertiti. Then you can start a family. Don't you want to get married and have children? Well, I actually had to stop and think about that. But really, why would a girl my age want to think of something like that at such a time? But apparently, that wasn't strange at all to anyone else. Perhaps I was just too modernized on some issues. I don't want to marry your father. Nobody said you had to, he chuckled. Bull. Cow. I don't see what that has to do with anything. But, like I said, you don't have to. He paused a moment, thinking about those words. Why were we bringing up cattle? So? I asked, ignoring the question. There are ways around that. Marrying my father, I mean. So spit it out already, I urged impatiently. What is it you're trying to say? He rubbed the back of his neck, becoming a little bashful. Well, he can't have you if you are betrothed. Betrothed? That's like an arranged engagement, right? Well, he took a moment to get some guts and straighten his proverbial backbone. I need a queen, Nefertiti. A lot of the courtiers think I'm not official without a consort. I narrowed my eyes. So is that your great plan? I'm just something convenient for you? He was startled by my tone and shielded himself. It's not just that. Believe me. He paused a moment, thinking. He then took my hands in his. It's not just convenience. Though, yes, it can be convenient for the both of us. But you've become the most important person in my life. I have thought so often about us. You make me happy, and I cherish every moment that we are together. I want you to be with me forever. I feel that you are meant for me, that you and I were meant for each other. I love you. Whoa, Amenhotep, wait. Believe me, he pleaded. I do believe you. It's not that. It's just, wow, it's just so sudden. My life lights up when you are near, even in the darkness of night. When Aten sleeps on the west and the moon rises, you are what is left of the sun. Wow, that was just so poetic. He was so amazing with words. I couldn't help but feel warm and flattered and all fuzzy inside. I really don't know what to say, I said in a breathy voice, overwhelmed. Say that you will. You will want for nothing. You will be my great wife and queen of Egypt, and I will be good to you. I swear it. We are still quite young, aren't we? Young? I lowered my head in defeat. This was hopeless. I was just thinking in a totally separate timeline than the current. It's nothing. I'm not quite comfortable giving you an answer right now. It's just so sudden. He sat back and frowned. Oh, I see. It was obvious he was very disappointed. I suppose I can understand that. I can wait. And that is how I left him for 2 full years. But the ordeal was not forgotten, and though he did not persist aggressively or insistently, I could tell it constantly ate up at him inside. He wanted to ask every day, but always held back. He valued what our days had been like up until then, and settled for continuing our relationship in that manner, as close friends. He tried hard to hide his hurt, but when it was quiet, I could usually see it in his face. But it became clear that I was in a dangerous position. I still resided in the harem with the other brides and children. Still being unclaimed put me forever in Amenhotep III's sights. And I knew he was determined to have me. More and more, he would look out for me, and if he saw me, he would watch me with such intensity. To make matters even more difficult, at 13, I was beginning to develop. My body began to shape, and I was starting to get cute little curves. And of course, the most attractive to Amenhotep III, which he had even noted quite publicly among the harem, breasts. My breasts by no means were huge. In fact, they were quite small. But for my age, I would consider them to be average size in relation. As I continued into my teens, it was quite likely they would grow larger. But that meant they would be more attractive to the king. Oh, the tragedy! My development was drawing far too much attention. I was almost wishing I wasn't cute, perky, and pretty. My protection was completely in the hands of Amenhotep IV and Queen T, and on rare occasions, the well-bribed daughters of T. But this luck couldn't withstand itself forever. The ploy would only last for so long. One night, it all came to an end. I had started having trouble sleeping earlier that year. I had become so afraid and stressed. I didn't want to offend anybody, but didn't want to give up my dignity. But aside from the threat of a horny king, I also had other issues on my mind. Since his proposal, I started to realize that I was beginning to see him differently. He was still my best friend, but I began to feel for him. I began to realize that I was becoming rather attracted to him, drawn to him. My feelings for him began to change slightly, making my chest warmer and heavier, yet pleasing. Was it perhaps that I was falling in love with him? I loved him. I loved him as a friend, for sure. I loved him as something more. But I didn't love him like a sister loves a brother. It was something else. Maybe it was that kind of love. It was definitely different. My mind was filled with so many what-ifs. It made me quite giddy, in fact. I felt like an Egyptian Cinderella, if you will. I actually had to at least smile, if I wasn't about to giggle like an idiot. He really was a Prince Charming, wasn't he? There was no denying it. I was briefly pulled from my thoughts by the cry of an infant somewhere else in the harem. Soon after came the lullaby of the infant's mother, which quieted the child. I almost had a warm feeling wash over me. That could be us someday. And I slipped back into my fantasies and daydreams as the harem grew quiet once again. There were many good mothers here, and one day I could be a good mother too. I must have dozed. I don't really know how much time had passed. It seemed like time stood still, but to sleep so soundly, it could have been hours. But perhaps in reality it was a total of 15 minutes. I had been disturbed gently. I felt a caress on my leg, waking me. I gasped, suddenly realizing that there was nothing to caress my leg. What if it was a cobra? I slapped at it. Not that it was the smartest thing to do if it was a cobra. But it wasn't a cobra, thank goodness. It was a hand. A hand? Amenhotep? Yes, came a husky purr. Oh no, wrong one. But before I could call for help or escape, he grabbed my hands and pushed me down. But I wasn't about to give up so easily. Despite his strength and determination, I was squirming and struggling. It was enough to put me in just the right position. I then thrust my knee into his groin, causing him to let out a loud squeal and slide from the bed and onto his knees on the floor. I didn't even check to see if he was all right. I didn't really care either. I was up in the next instant and darting into the dark corridors of the palace. He would most certainly be angry once he was able to see straight. He would try to come after me. I had to hide. To my advantage, I was able to gain a head start, and I knew the palace layout rather well. The problem was that it was rather dark. So this was the test. How well did I know these hallways? Could I really put my confidence in my memory and do it blind? "Nefertiti! Get back here!" came the thunderous roar of Amenhotep III. I was right. He sounded downright furious. My first reaction was a scream, which I immediately regretted. That gave away my position, and he would be coming for me, or violated, or both. Desperate now, I ran until I met a wall, and slid along that wall until I found a door. No questions asked, in I went and slammed the door, leaping blindly for cover. But I wasn't alone. This was a bedroom, and my cover was in a bed. I let out a scream when I realized I had tackled onto a body, and the other person understandably matched my surprise. But then came a long silent pause. "Who's there? Who are you?" a frightened and slightly angry voice demanded. I reached out and touched him. Smaller, skinnier. Oh, thank goodness. Amenhotep. The fourth? Nefertiti? Is that you? "It's me," I cried out, hugging him tight. "I'm so glad it's you." "Now that we've established that we are indeed us, what's wrong? What happened?" "Keep him away from me," I whispered. "He's coming. Don't let him near me." "He who?" I nuzzled my face into his shoulder. "Please, I'll marry you. I'll be your wife and queen. I'll be good and true to you. Anything you want." He looked to the door as the voice roared again. "Nefertiti! Where are you?" The voice in the hall was coming closer. Amenhotep IV scooted back down into his bed and pulled me with him. "Under the sheets, Nefertiti. Hurry." I saw no reason to argue. He was agreeing to help me, so I slid down under the sheets, slinging down as far as I could, and held on to him, resting my face against his soft belly. The room was dark. I hoped these circumstances would be enough to keep me hidden. It was not a moment too soon. I heard the door slam open, making both the prince and I jump with a start. I absently began to squeeze about his middle. "Boy, where is that wench?" Amenhotep III demanded. The prince gave a yawn, pretending to be quite groggy. "Father? Who?" His voice was a little bit strangled. He faked to scratch an itch, but once his hand was under the sheet, he gave me a small pinch on the back of my neck. I then realized I was holding him too tight, and he was growing increasingly uncomfortable. So reluctantly, I loosened my grip, bringing him more comfort. "I've been asleep," he spat in a rather cranky tone. "I'd like to sleep again, if you don't mind." "Son!" I couldn't help but flinch as I heard the man's footsteps stomp closer. "You are this close to..." I felt the prince cringe and shield himself. I continued to hold on to him, now minding myself so I would not squeeze the air out of him or hurt him. I could feel my own muscles tighten to make up for what I lacked in my grip. "Amenhotep!" Oh, who would have thought such a cranky voice would be so beautiful? Finding her husband about to strike her teenage son only fueled her fury further. "Damn it, Amenhotep! What are you doing? Leave him alone!" "You stay out of this!" he snapped at her. This did not sit well with her at all. I could hear her huffing and puffing, and I could just imagine how wide her eyes must have gotten. I would not have been surprised at all if her pupils had turned red. I'm sure she flew like a phantom across the room and socked her husband across the face. Leave it to T. She did everything big. "How dare you! Keep your hands off that boy! Do not take out your temper tantrums on him! Take on someone your own size! Face me!" "Don't be stupid," he spat. "Stupid? I may be a dried-up old prune, but I can still outwit and outrustle most men. Get out!" That was followed by a crashing sound, making the prince and I flinch. She had thrown a vase into the corridor, where it shattered. Sheesh, she sounded like a woman possessed. Go to another of your whores! Be gone from this place! Calm down, he demanded. Have that mess cleaned up! Stay away! Mother, it's all right. I don't mind getting it, Amenhotep IV said carefully. I would just like to go back to sleep. Oh, my poor baby, she coddled, a complete change of character from a moment ago. No, a prince should not do such things. We will handle it and let you get back to your much-needed rest. Thank you? You heard me, she spat to the elder Amenhotep. Let the boy sleep. Honestly, how childish of you. Your son is far more of a man than you these days. You're attracting all sorts of attention, he yelled. Do you know how to make it stop? He replied with grumbles, growls, and mutters that I couldn't quite understand. But he was apparently quite defeated and vacated the room, leaving his wife to be alone with us. She let out a loud sigh. Really, you need to just give the girl some air. At this rate, you'll be just a heartless barbarian. And then her delicate footsteps vanished into the corridor. The gentle squeak of the door and the latch followed. So she knew I was there the whole time. And she said nothing. She was such an amazing woman. Amenhotep's belly let out a little rumble, bringing me back to reality. I'm not sure why, but it brought me a feeling of peace. I crawled up, freeing myself, and was able to look him finally in the face. I'm really beginning to like your mother. Well, she's definitely something else, he agreed. I appreciate this, I said, snuggling against him. This would be where I stayed. This place was safer. In this place, with him, Amenhotep III would be less likely to get me. Although, come to think of it, Amenhotep IV, in the years I'd lived there, he never actually showed me his bedroom before. It was one of the rooms we never ventured to. Strange, really. He had to have been in this quiet bliss for about an hour. Of course, that is a basic estimation. It was nice to be in his arms, feeling him beside me. Such ease was dominant and tranquil. He suddenly gave a sharp inhale, startling me. Are you all right? Nefertiti, is this a bribe? A bribe? You marry me in return for protection from my father. I frowned. Oh dear. He seemed to have totally misunderstood my intent. But then, I was rather unclear about them. The circumstances were terrible. Oh no! Oh, Amenhotep, no, that wasn't what it looked like. I'm sorry. I was just really panicked. But I promise, I've been thinking really hard about it over a long time. I really want to. Before this whole mess started, I was realizing just how much I loved you. And I wanted to be with you. I don't really know what it was I was holding out for. If you aren't the one for me, then I don't think anybody is. You have such beautiful words, he replied. Well, I learned from the masters, I smiled. You are the love of my life. I love you too. Another snuggle. And it is for love. It's not for power or fame or protection. It wouldn't matter to me if you were the poorest of common men. Huh. He moved forward to kiss my forehead. You flatter me. If those words were to come from any other woman, they would mean nothing to me. From you, it is perfection. I believe them. And I mean every word of it. Nefer Kepper Kifi Wikiwak. Damn it, I can't pronounce that name! Nefer Keperure Weanra, he laughed. Yeah, that one, Mr. Unique One of Ra.